Two. All right, hey everyone, welcome to webinar number 5 for Module 5 of our first flight of Next Level for the year. Good to have everyone joining us this week. So let's just jump right into it. Module 5 is on shooting. Now some of this stuff may seem simple or might even seem elementary to some of you, but I have laced a lot of really interesting information and tips and tricks throughout the entire document, stuff that just little subtle things that, if applied, will really help your business grow and help you be the professional to stand out from the rest of your competition and just to overall be a better photographer, a better business owner. All these things make up details, guys. All the stuff in the course, you've got big stuff, little stuff, but the most service that you're going to provide for clients is in the details of what you do. If you think about experiences, excuse me, that you've had at restaurants or places you've gone to spend money or to be served, you might notice that the things that really stick out to you the most are actually some of the smallest things. Okay, if you go to 2 really nice restaurants, the restaurant that's going to win is the one that just had subtle differences in their details. Okay, when I think about the last 2 really good steak restaurants I went to, I can tell you my experience was similar. They both had good steak. They were both around the same price, same mood, same lighting, same atmosphere and environment, but the things that I'd probably think of were subtle things like, different flavors in the food, or, maybe they had a cleaner restroom, or maybe slightly nicer staff, or maybe more conveniently located. So details are really important. So a lot of this is big stuff, but a lot of this is detail. So let's just jump right in. Okay, so Chapter 1 is expectations. Guys, this is one of the simplest ways to make yourself look like the hero in your business rather than the zero. Okay. And so we'll go ahead and scroll down here, but I'm not gonna read it. So expectations define and over-deliver. Here's what that means. So let me just break it down to you in the simplest way possible. If you under-promise and over-deliver, you look like the hero. And if you do the opposite, you look like the villain. Even if you define exactly what you, or you deliver exactly what you define, sometimes you still look like the villain, even though you did what you say you were going to do. Okay? If you remember the law of value means that you're bringing more to the table than you're being paid for. So if you bring exactly what you're being paid for to the table, you won't be seen as valuable. You'll just be seen as an expense. Okay? So if someone pays you $350 for a photo shoot and you give them a $350 photo shoot, they're just going to say, okay, we got what we paid for, nothing more, nothing less. And that's what they're going to be left feeling was, okay, well, we paid, we got what we paid for. However, if you over-deliver, they're going to see you as valuable because you gave them more than they paid. And if you under-deliver, they're going to see you as a thief because you took their money and gave them less than what they paid for. Okay, if I put in $10 into a Coke machine and I get less than 10 $1 Cokes, I'm going to feel like I was stolen from. And if I get an 11th one, it's going to make my whole day. And even though it's only $1 Coke, I'm going to feel like it made my entire day. So let's think about it like this. Let's say that your portrait session photo turnaround time is 3 to 6 weeks. Okay, we're going to set that expectation. We're going to define that expectation. We're going to tell the client, okay, delivery is in 3 to 6 weeks. You'll get your photos then. So in their mind, they set this expectation of, okay, sometime in the next 3 to 6 weeks, I'm going to get my photos, and they get really excited about that. Okay, if you give them their photos in 6 weeks, okay. That is basically meeting the minimum expectation that you defined. Even though it was within that expectation, they're not going to be happy. They might act like they are, but they're not going to be happy. You're not going to create a raving fan that way. You're just going to maybe sustain or maintain a customer. If you deliver at the minimum amount that you defined in your expectations. However, let's say that you set expectations of 3 to 6 weeks and you give them their photos in 2 weeks. You're going to be the superhero of their life, okay? You're going to create a raving fan because they're going to go, oh my gosh, they're going to look at their phone and say, what the heck, my photographer's calling me. It's only been 2 weeks since the shoot. There's no way my photos are done. They're going to pick up the phone and you're going to say, oh, your photos are done. They're in the mail. They'll be there in 2 days. They're going to have a freak-out attack of joy because you blew the expectation out of the water. Now, it almost seems unfair that we can do this, but we can. This is the simplest, cheapest way to leave a mind-blowing impression on your clients. And it doesn't cost you anything. What it does is it takes proper staging and proper expectations and proper planning on your part, okay? Define the expectation in a way that you can always over-deliver. Now, let's say that you can't over-deliver for some reason, okay? Then you have the safety net of a buffer expectation, okay? So if you set the delivery for 3 to 6 weeks and you make it in 2, you're going to be the hero that saved their life, okay? If you can't do it in 2 and you have to give it to them in 3, 4, 5, or 6, you're still going to meet the expectation, because what you don't want to happen is you overpromise and under-deliver on your expectations, okay? Because then you're going to be seen as a criminal, and they're not going to become a raving fan, okay? They're just going to complain, okay? So that is one of the simplest ways you can blow your client's mind, okay, is by setting an expectation that you know you can dominate, okay? And a lot of that is just being conservative with what you feel like you can deliver, knowing that for the most part, you'll blow that away and you'll make them super happy. So expectations, that is almost an unfair way to create raving fans out of your clients, and not just people who, may use you again, but they're going to go tell all their friends, oh my gosh, my photographers are amazing. They usually deliver photos in 3 to 6 weeks, but they delivered mine in 2, okay? They're going to feel special. They're going to feel like you singled them out, when really, you just kind of stacked, the cards in the deck in your favor, okay? Didn't cost you anything. All it took was positioning and planning on your part. All right, chapter 2 is on the shoot from start to finish, okay? This is where a lot of these details come into play. But basically, we set out for you here how your shoot process, the workflow of your photo sessions, should look from start to finish. And by start, I mean the first time they inquire with you, the first time they're a lead, the first time they reach out to you, that's when the shoot begins. The shoot does not begin when you guys step foot at the park 3 miles from their house. It's from the first time they contact you. Okay, the entire customer experience starts then. So we go into detail on everything that you need to know, you need to be thinking about. And I don't care if you've been doing photography for 10 years. This entire workflow of the shoot from start to finish, you will learn something there. There's a ton of good information. This is stuff that we do every time. This is what makes our clients really happy, keeps them coming back. We even give you scripts for confirmation emails, tips on what to wear, arriving early, getting started, and then posing them, showing them what to do. We talk more about that later. Thanking them, giving more expectations, the expectation on delivery, and a little diddly here about details, like we've talked about this whole time. What's going to set you apart from amateur to rock star is your details. Okay, if they get a photo shoot with you and 7 other photographers, all 8 sessions are going to look similar. But when someone says, what's the difference between you and ABC Photography, they're not going to talk about, well, we took pictures, well, there's a camera, well, we were outside, we were breathing, the photographer had a lens, the photographer spoke to us. They're going to say, well, man, they were there early, they scouted out the location, and they were really nice to my kids, and they made us smile, and, they brought bottled water because it was really hot, and those details are going to make all the difference. And I've said this before, and you'll probably hear me say this in almost all the webinars, you know of really crappy photographers that are constantly booking shoots, right? They're constantly booking shoots because the end result of the photo is not everything when it comes to your business and making a lasting impression. Okay, it's the entire process. Okay, it's how you make people feel in the details of what you do. So the entire shoot experience and process is very important. So read that over really well. Okay. Chapter 3, composition and the rules. Okay, some of this stuff is subjective, guys. I could go back and forth on, the subjective nature on art and rules, but some of this stuff is science. Some of this is natural and inherent. There's certain things that are aesthetically pleasing to us naturally, and there's certain things that are not. Okay, so we sit down and we talk a little bit about composition here. Okay, things that make up, we go through the elements of art, which is something that you would learn in art or design school, also known as the elements of design. Line, shape, color, texture, tone, form, space, and depth. And I'm not saying that every time before you take a picture, you need to say, okay, line, eye's ability to navigate the image. Okay, shape, areas of the image that are defined by edges purposely or naturally. But the more you know, the more you will begin to naturally and organically watch out for these things and compose better photos, okay? So composition is very important. And then we talk about the different, what we call rules. Okay, rule of thirds, rule of odds, rule of space, simplicity and normalcy, limiting focus, creating movement. Okay, all those are huge attributes of contribution that will make your photo stand out, way more than your competition. Wait, hold on, just noticed a spelling error. I'm going to fix this right here. Subconscious, not subconscious. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, rule of thirds, rule of odds, space, simplicity, normalcy, limiting focus, creating movement. Okay, you guys can read. I'm not going to go through all those. Those are super important rules of composition. Okay, lots of good assignments around that too. All right. Okay, chapter 4. These are some sample settings. These are kind of like your cheat sheets. Okay, these lighting conditions are all listed here in this first column, and then the approximate ISO, F number, shutter speed, white balance, and flash, whether it's necessary and what we use, is all listed here. Okay, these are not going to work in every one of these situations. Okay, I swear if any of you calls me and say, Austin, I'm outside and it's sunny and overcast and my ISO is 400 and my F number is 2.8 to 5.6 and my shutter is 2000, I'm on auto white balance and I have no flash and it's overexposed or underexposed. Okay, that's not what I want you to do. These are starting places. Okay, I guarantee you that these are great starting points for your settings. Okay. And if you're a newer photographer and you have a hard time getting your settings right, at least quickly, then I want you to screenshot this or save it. Put it on your phone. Put it, print it and keep it with your notebook or your journal or whatever you carry around with you to the different shoots you go to. And you'll have a nice, handy cheat sheet that will make it easier for you to know your settings more quickly. Okay, because what you don't want to happen is get into a difficult lighting situation and simply not know what to do with your lighting. Now, I've told you guys time and time again, and you'll hear this, throughout all the webinars, do not do all of your learning when someone's paying you to take their photos. Go out and practice this stuff. Give your friends and family some free photos that aren't under the expectation or even the auspice of you being the photographer delivering them a quality photo shoot, but go out and practice this stuff. I don't want you learning when someone else's money is at stake, someone else's hard-earned money is at stake, or your reputation's at stake, or your company's at stake. Okay. By the time that you start charging for photos, all these different lighting situations and circumstances, they should be pretty easy for you, natural for you to know approximate settings. Okay. But those are a really good guide for starting points. Okay. Chapter 5, posing, be their leader. Okay. Do not be embarrassed to pose people. Do not be weird. Do not be awkward when posing people. Most of the time, when you take someone out for photos, they're not a photographer. They're not a posing artist or posing consultant or posing professional. Okay, they are a normal human being that doesn't always know what is the most flattering pose for someone. Okay, one of our tricks, one of our secrets to posing. This is another almost like it's so easy, like the expectation thing, is when we first arrive. And we get into actual, photo taking mode. We tell the couple or the family or whoever we're taking pictures. We say, hey, you guys talk for a second. Just hang out, be yourselves. We're going to get our settings right. We're going to get our gear ready. You guys just sit over there and talk and hang out. Okay. Well, guess what? We already know what our settings are going to be. Our gear's already ready. You turn the camera on, take the lens cap off. Okay, gear's ready. Okay, I've taken a lot of photos. I can look at the circumstance I'm in. Scene luminance, consider all those things, instantly adjust my settings. Okay, I need about 8 seconds to do all that. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm giving them an opportunity to relax, to become comfortable, to look at whoever they're with and smile and have a little bit of fun while we are, quote unquote, getting ready. And sometimes that's when we'll start taking photos. Okay, when I see what their default position is or their default disposition, then I know how to pose them better. Okay, if we're out with a couple and we say, hey, you guys just hang out for a minute, don't worry about us, we're just going to get our settings ready, and all of a sudden they put their arms around each other and they're laughing and giggling and kissing, well, then I'm going to know they're going to be a really easy couple to pose. And all I have to do is say, look at the camera, smile, and love each other. Now, if I say, okay, you guys hang out for a minute, we're going to get our settings ready, and I look over there and they're staring at me like their face is frozen in time, well, then I'm going to know that they're going to need a lot more guidance from me to pose them. So, as far as posing goes, we want to make them comfortable, get them excited. We want to capture their style, their personality, their glow, who they are, and you have to become their leader. Okay. and you don't want to say, make yourself prettier, or pose better, or stop looking so awkward. Okay, all you're going to get there is someone that's going to cry and never use you again. Okay, like I said, they don't know how to pose themselves. Okay, okay, I got some funny comments rolling in here on the webinar. Sorry about that. Lost my train of thought. Thank you. So you have to become their leader and say, okay, great. All right, that was a great pose. I'm going to go ahead and have you move your arm here, and why don't you stand here? And it might take you walking over next to them, standing next to them, and doing the pose yourself, so they feel a little bit more comfortable. Make it funny. I can't tell you how many times that Rachel and I will go over to each other and pose ourselves to show them what the shot's going to look like. Makes them feel a little more comfortable, humanizes it a little bit. Okay, so you have to be their leader. Okay, yeah. All right. So as their leader, you have to lead them well because you're the professional. Okay, you're the one they're paying. You're the one posing as the expert, no pun intended. And so you have to be the one to lead them. Okay, and so we go over a few good pointers. Pose them in a way that complements their body type and shape. Guys, be mindful of the people that you're shooting, okay? And if you don't know how to shoot someone with a large body or a really curvy body, then do not start taking photo shoots. Get on Pinterest, study a lot of photos on angles and composition and even lens types when shooting bigger people, okay? Because certain lenses even will help you help photos look a little less skewed lateral-wise, and will actually make people skinnier. So you guys know from using a wide-angle lens what it looks like in the very center and on the very edge of the lens. Okay, so there's different ways that you can even use your lenses to help you. Okay, pose people in a way that allows them to be themselves. Okay, I can't tell you how many hilarious pictures I've seen on the internet where someone tries to pose them in a way that just doesn't jive with who they are. And so if the pose doesn't make them feel natural, feel organic, they're not going to take good photos. Okay, if you go out with a couple and you notice that they're a very modest couple, and you say, okay, all right, you guys are going to kiss for this one, and you're going to kind of pull up your skirt a little to make the picture look sexy. Okay, you're going to get some really bad photos. Okay, the girl might look like she's scared or going to cry because you have posed them incorrectly. Okay, so posing them as their natural selves is very important, and that has to do with understanding them. Even some couples, they may not want to kiss. Sometimes in shoots we say, would you guys like to kiss? Not go ahead and kiss, but we might say, would you guys like to kiss for this one? Or are you comfortable putting your hand on your, girlfriend, fiance, wife, whatever it is, hip for this shot? Don't just expect them to do what you want because it may not make them comfortable. And if they're not comfortable, you're going to know, and then when they get the final photo, they're going to remember how uncomfortable they were. And that's going to leave a bad taste in their mouth about the photos, and they probably won't ever call you again. Okay? Also, consider their clothing when posing them. Okay? If your female client is wearing a short skirt, don't tell her to bend over or sit on the ground with her legs wide open. Okay? You're not going to get good pictures with that. You're going to have a hard time editing, and you're probably not going to want to deliver a photo like that. Okay? And also, be conscious of what they're wearing. In terms of where you're taking photos, you don't want to get their clothes dirty. Okay, if they're not wearing, the right outfit to be out in the woods, you don't want to take them tromping through the woods. If they have nice shoes on, you don't want to take them through the mud. If they're wearing very formal clothes, do formal poses. Okay, don't have them lay down in a bed of, grass if they're wearing suits and dresses. Try to adapt the type of pictures you're taking to what they're wearing. Okay, remember composition when posing. Okay. Think about the scene in front of them, the scene behind them, the middle ground where they exist in the photo. Don't pose them next to things that are going to take the attention away from the viewer of the photo. Okay. Number 5, it's okay to pose creatively, but also pose timelessly. Okay. Do not reinvent the posing wheel because you're not going to better reinvent it than people who have been working on it for a long time. Okay. You can think of some funny poses. But, funny poses end up on, peopleofwalmart.com type websites, and you don't want your creative poses being educational material for people like me. Use timeless poses. Okay, there's reasons why it looks wonderful when a woman has one arm down and her other arm bent, or her elbow bent with her hand on her hip. that look looks great, okay? Because it composes her body almost in thirds. It leads the viewer to her face with the lines. It gives depth to the photo. That pose just always looks good. It will always look good, okay? It's naturally appealing to the eye. Number 6, quality over quantity, okay? I talk about this a lot with you guys as my students on the phone, that if you are advertising your work and even shooting your work, if it's not a 10 out of 10, if it's not a home run, don't advertise with it and don't do it, okay? Because here's what's going to happen. If you take too many shots, too many poses, and they all are just okay, or one's fantastic and one's terrible, what your client's going to do is average the experience in their mind, okay? So you take one fantastic picture, fantastic pose, composition and everything, and they think, wow, that's a 10 out of 10. Well, then you did your own weird creative pose where, they're doing this, I don't even know how to describe it, but, she was sitting Indian style on his head, and he was, sitting on a rail in a park, and, there were like, weird animals everywhere. It just looks terrible, okay? They're going to rate that a 4 out of 10. So then what they're going to do is average the 4 and the 10 out of 10, and then be stuck with your work at a 6. Okay, instead of as your work at a 10, where it could belong, they're going to average it all. So it'd be better if you took fewer photos, had fewer poses that were super high quality. Okay, you do not need 7 different poses. Okay, in a 30-minute portrait session, even an hour portrait session. Okay, spend time, compose your shots really well. I want you guys to really remember this quote right here. Okay, this is from a wedding that we shot last year, the year before. I can't quite remember. Okay, anyways, the highlighted part here is, I would have paid that whole amount. This is a wedding, couple for us. Our wedding packages start at $2,900, go all the way up to $6,000. I believe they paid somewhere around $4,000 for their wedding photography. Here's what they said. This was the groom. Okay, said, I would have paid that whole amount for just this one picture. I'm going to treasure it forever. Okay, I would have paid you, my photographer, $4,000 for one photo. Okay, think how powerful that is. Okay, if we would have given him 2,000 crappy ones, he wouldn't have been happy. But we gave him, and then we didn't just give him one photo. Obviously, we gave him 400. But all that to say, one photo can really mean the world to your clients. Okay, so all right, number 7, encourage them, guys. Since you're the one taking their photos, they are going to feel happy, so stipulated by what comes out of your mouth during the shoot, okay? So even if they're not doing killer, build them up, get them excited, try to break the ice, make them feel good. Tell them they're doing a great job, okay? People that don't get photos all the time, it's awkward. Some people do not get photo shoots because they do not know how to act at a photo session, okay? That is a fact. I have heard that from consumers. It's awkward for them, and a lot of photographers are awkward, and they're downright rude, okay? They're just there to get paid. They don't really run a real business like you do, and they don't really care. And so they leave a bad, lasting impression in the hearts of people that we want to become our clients. So throughout the shoot, say, wow, great job. You look great. Oh, man. Tell the girl she looks beautiful, okay? Tell the guy that he's doing a great job on the shoot. His smile looks good. He's doing a great job. He's being a trooper. And so, something we like to do is we'll show them our camera. We'll show them a really good picture that we took and walk up to them and say, look at this. Look how good you guys look. And they're going to go, oh, okay, yeah. And, man, that will melt them a little bit. That'll break the ice. They'll feel better about themselves. And then the rest of the shoot's going to be a lot easier. I can't say how many shoots we've started where the guy was so nervous. He even seemed reluctant to be there. But we take a few photos. I'd show him the back of the camera, show him how good the photo looked, and instantly the guy's mood would change, and they'd start having a good time, okay? So it is your job to encourage your clients because you're the one with them, okay? All right. Let's keep moving here. All right. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one. Chapter 6 is utilizing depth of field, okay? Our depth of field is the depth of the focus that is in perfect sharpness, and beyond the depth of field is when that sharpness slowly begins to get soft in either direction, parallel between you and your subject, okay? Depth of field helps us emphasize the subject or emphasize the background and de-emphasize unsightly elements of the photo as well, okay? This area wasn't our lesson on depth of field, but this was a lesson on utilizing depth of field, okay? Depth of field helps draw the attention of the viewer to whatever area of the photograph you want. It can help us rule out stuff we don't want in the photo. It can also help emphasize the beautiful area that you're taking a photo at. If you're taking a photo in the Swiss Alps and it's beautiful everywhere, well then yeah, you want your depth of field to also include some of that beautiful background. If someone wants family photos in their backyard and everything looks terrible, luckily you can shoot a very narrow depth of field, which is a very large aperture, depending on your focal length and distance to subject, and get some of those unsightly elements of the photo out of focus. Okay? Yeah, I know. You can do that in Photoshop and Lightroom, but remember the rule, 95-5. I want you guys shooting 95% and editing 5%. Okay? 5.7, foreground, middle ground, and background. This is another thing to be very conscious of when shooting a photograph is what's in the foreground, what's in the middle ground, which is typically where your subject exists, and what's in the background. What you don't want to happen is you get home and realize that these beautiful photos you're taking in the park, you didn't realize it, but there's a nudist club in the background, and there's 50 old naked men in the background of the photo, and now you're going to have to spend the next 6 weeks editing them all out. Okay, that's what you don't want to happen. Okay, I can't tell you how many times that someone gets back to edit a photo and they realize that there's a tree coming out of the person's head behind them. Okay, because they were going too fast. They thought, hey, let's take 97 poses because that's what the client wants, and they stopped paying attention to what's in their foreground and background. Okay, but you, being a next level photographer, know that fewer poses and fewer photos that are better are more desired by the client. So you're going to take time and care in the way that you compose your shots, and you're going to consider your foreground and background. Okay, slow down, take a deep breath, think about what you're doing, and make sure that if there is anything weird in your field of view of the photo, compensate for that. Okay, few important aspects of this: positioning, composition, exposure. Okay. Sometimes it's tough. You guys know that if you're shooting in difficult light, that sometimes the background can get blown out where the background's too dark, etc., or reversed. And so sometimes you have to really think about, okay, what exposure am I shooting at in my subject, and what exposure would properly expose in the foreground and background of this photo? Am I really going to get a good photo to expose here? Am I going to need to use a flash? Am I going to need to move them, rotate them, take them to a different place? Okay, so foreground, middle ground, background is important, and also remembering exposure. Okay, let's say that you're under a shady tree at noon, and everything around that shady tree is in the full power of the sun, you know, that 5 to 10K range. Well, under the tree, it's going to be beautiful, and then all around it, it's going to be white and over exposed and blown out. Okay, so you've got to pay attention what's in front of and behind your subjects, because if your subjects look perfect and all of the rest of the image is blown out, they're going to hate it. Okay. So now I know there is some art to that, yada, 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 but for the most part, people don't want insanely blown out photos. That trend ended a few years ago. Okay. So positioning, exposure, depth of field. Depth of field can help us help manipulate where we're shooting. That can really help us avoid, you know, some of those situations like blown out foreground, middle ground, background. Okay, 5.8. I can't emphasize this enough. Okay, I want you to focus on this chapter. I want you to turn all your focus to what we're about to talk about. So focus here. Chapter 8 is focus on focus. Okay, focusing on focus is extremely important. I wasn't trying to say any puns there if you heard any. But this is important because no one wants blurry photos. Okay, no one wants blurry photos. I would rather have sharp photos. Everything else is terrible. Okay, than really great photos and everything's blurry. Everything's out of focus. Okay, because there's nothing more unappealing than a photo that has zero sharpness, especially on the subject. Okay, focus, a lot of the things that affect that. Okay, sufficient shutter speed. Okay, and if you can't have a really fast shutter, then you need to make sure your subject is not moving much. Okay, proper lighting. Okay, let's see what we say here. I've never had a client tell me they wish the final product contained more images than faces or important elements were out of focus. Okay, sorry, I misspelled another word there. I've never had a client tell me that they wish that their photo had more cool stuff in it than had faces in focus. Okay, a lot of times we try to take these and compose these wild photos, and then we sacrifice things like sharpness of the client's face to get other elements of the photos that were not as important, when what they really want is a photo that's in focus of their face. Okay, when you're taking pictures of people, they want to see themselves in the photo. Okay, so if you compose this awesome shot and they're next to this lake or by this building or whatever, and it's so cool, but their faces are out of focus, the subject or the subject of the photo are out of focus, they're not going to like the picture. Okay, you could take an awesome picture of someone in front of the pyramids in Giza. Okay, that would be an awesome picture. And if they're out of focus, they're not going to be happy with the picture. Okay, focus should be one of the highest priorities of the picture. And sometimes, I don't know why this is the way it is, this is a debated subject on whether something has to be in completely perfect focus or not. But go look at a photo that the subject is in flawless focus, and then a photo where the subject is in, 70% sharp. And you will be immediately drawn to the one that's sharper. Okay, that's why certain camera bodies cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and some cost $400. Okay, that's why quality glass, starts in the $1,500 to $2,000 range instead of kit lenses that cost $100. Sharpness is important. Sharpness is also important in printing quality. Okay, you guys know that. Okay, in chapter 9, this is the last chapter here we're going to talk about, is also simplicity. Okay. All this stuff is a lot to think about, especially when you're on a shoot. That's why we say, like again in this chapter, don't train while you're working. Okay. You want to have fluidity and flow in the way that you shoot, the way that you deal with your clients. Okay. Sometimes, actually most of the time, less is more. Okay. If you try to throw in too many things, consider too many elements, and you lose the simplicity, kind of the organic nature of what a photo shoot should be like, you're going to hurt the experience for the customer. Okay, so while I tell you to remember all this crazy stuff, don't overcomplicate the shoot. Don't overcomplicate the clients. Okay, read into the clients, read into the shoot, read into wherever you are, and adjust the way you're going to handle the shoot from there. Okay. If you get a client that is very introverted and very quiet, and they just want to have you, just give them a photo shoot. Don't go berserk. Okay. Let's not climb this mountain and then jump down into this valley and then sit on the hood of this car and take pictures. Okay. Have fun. Talk to them. Don't overcomplicate the shoot. Don't overcomplicate them, and that will go really far. Okay. You as the professional are being trusted as the professional to lead and guide clients in photo shoots, okay? But you also need to be organic, be natural, be fun, be easy to get along with, be very conducive to their needs. And so remember that sometimes, less is more. You don't need to bring, duplicates of all your gear to shoots. Having fewer poses, you're going to get better shots that way, okay? Doing fewer things on a photo shoot is going to be a lot better. So remember, to not overwhelm your client, to not overwhelm the shoot, just remember simplicity is also important, okay? One of the ways I talk about this again is, here in this third paragraph, one of the best ways you can keep the shoot simple is to not train while you're working. Be diligent and honorable by learning your skill very, very well before you go out and do it professionally, okay? You wouldn't want your doctor learning brain surgery on you. Okay, same thing. You don't want someone to give you their hard-earned money and then they realize later they were your guinea pig, for the next chapter of the next level photographer course. Okay, you can keep the shoot much simpler and easier and flow smoother by making sure that you're prepared for the shoots. Okay, so we've got one more module of the marketable skill portion of this course, and then we'll start to get into business concepts. Which is a lot of fun, and that's when you guys can, start to be pushing shoots more, paid shoots more, and we'll start to learn the stuff that's going to make you a lot of money. So, all right, we're going to move into Q&A, and we're going to cut recording for Q&A. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and all right, well, let's go into Q&A, and we'll start with